What if the person who understood you most in the world was someone you met during the apocalypse? Someone who called you an idiot every single day? Someone who would burn the entire world to a story just to make sure you existed in it? That's not a love story most people would recognize, but that's exactly what ORV gave us. And today, we're breaking it down. Before we talk about the relationship, you need to understand the man. Kim Dokja spent 13 years of his life as the sole reader of a web novel called Ways of Survival. Every single day, every single update, just him, alone, reading a story nobody else cared about. My Animalist. Think about that for a second. Not one other person, just him. He failed his exams. He got a dead-end job. His life, by every conventional measure, was going nowhere. But he had Ways of Survival. And in that story, he had Yoo Jung-hyuk, the protagonist he watched struggle and regress and fight for centuries. The characters in that novel were more real to him than his actual life. And then one day, the novel became reality. The apocalypse hit. Scenarios started. And suddenly, Kim Dokja, the loser nobody noticed, was the only person on Earth who knew exactly how this story was supposed to go. He had the knowledge. He had the plan. What he didn't have was someone who truly knew him. She's an author. Sharp, cunning, beautiful in that terrifying way where you know she's already 3 moves ahead of you. And she wrote a novel called SSSS Grade Infinite Regressor, which Kim Dokja immediately recognized as a plagiarized version of his favorite story. So their first dynamic? Pure hostility? Kim Dokja kept making jabs about the plagiarism. She kept insisting she did nothing wrong. They were passive-aggressive at best, outright aggressive at worst. Web novel, normal people would have separated, chosen different teams, moved on. But the apocalypse doesn't give you that option. They got stuck with each other, and something strange started happening. Sooyoung started caring, not just about Kim Dokja's usefulness, but about the parts of him nobody else noticed. His obsession with Ways of Survival. The things he tried to hide, the weight he carried alone. She saw him. Not the strategist, not the guy with the knowledge, him. And that terrified her, because Sooyoung doesn't do vulnerable. Here's where ORV does something almost no story does. Kim Dokja and Sooyoung's relationship crackles with tension. Her sharp wit and loyalty creating a dynamic where her teasing often masks something much deeper. Some readers read it as friendship. Some read it as love. The story never tells you which one to choose. And that's intentional, because Kim Dokja is a man who spent his entire life inside someone else's story. He watched fictional characters fall in love, sacrifice themselves, find meaning. He never thought that could happen to him. So when Sooyoung, this impossible, infuriating, brilliant woman, starts risking everything for him, he doesn't name it. He just keeps moving. In chapter 461, they pretend to be a couple for a discount. A joke. A bit. And yet the fandom lost their minds over it. Because in that one stupid scene, you could see exactly what they were refusing to say out loud. And then there's this line. When Sooyoung is trying to save him, desperately, she shouts, "You promised to read my novel, didn't you?" That's it. That's her confession. Not "I love you." Not "Don't leave me." You promised to read my novel. A writer asking the only reader she trusts to stay alive long enough to finish her story. Tell me that doesn't destroy you. And then we get to the ending. The 1863rd version of Sooyoung makes a choice that defines everything. She writes Ways of Survival herself, knowing that the stories she creates will become reality and claim millions of lives. Just to make sure a teenage Kim Dokja survives his darkest moment. She writes the apocalypse. She writes the suffering of millions of people, to save one boy who hadn't even met her yet, because she'd already seen what he became, what he meant, what the world looked like with him in it. Kim Dokja technically doesn't end up with anyone by the novel's end. No confession, no final kiss, no label. And somehow, that's more romantic than all of it, because Sooyoung didn't need a label. She just needed him to exist, and she rewrote history to make sure he did. ORV is not a romance novel. It's a story about a lonely man who spent his whole life reading someone else's story, and never realized he was becoming the most important character in someone else's heart. The movie dropped in Korean theaters on July 23, 2025, with Lee Min-ho and An Ha-ha-seop leading the cast. The anime is coming. The fandom is at its absolute peak right now. If you haven't read ORV yet, I genuinely envy you. You get to experience it for the first time. And if you have, drop a comment. Tell me your favorite Kim Dokja and Sooyoung moment. I'll see you in the next one.